Welcome to AI in Action, Exploring Tomorrow's Tech Today, the podcast where we delve into the groundbreaking world of artificial intelligence. I'm Maurie, and with me is my husband, Jim. With our combined expertise in technology and education, we're here to guide you through the AI revolution. Whether it's the latest news headlines or transformative AI applications in classrooms, healthcare, and beyond, we're here to make sense of it all. Together, let's uncover how AI is reshaping our world from everyday encounters to the future of work. So let's dive in and explore tomorrow's tech today. Hello, welcome to AI in Action for this week. My name is Maurie and I'm here with my husband Jim. And tonight we have a guest, which is our daughter Raychel. Now, news sites are always trying to find new ways to get people to visit and click on things. And we all know that AI has been a very hot topic for quite some time. And we also know that if you are on top and you start losing followers, the easiest way to get back on top is to become the anti-person. We know what I'm talking about. It's that person that always tells you how things are fake or they're false or the world's about to end. And we've been seeing more and more of this in AI news lately. So since Jim and I don't cover the negative, we decided to take a look at examples of the useful ways that AI is currently making or expected to make a positive difference in industries and also in people's lives. So in today's episode, our daughter Raychel, she works at Dell, and which originally, like most tech companies, Dell was a little apprehensive about are cautious about using AI, and maybe they are starting to warm up to the idea.
So let's start with some of the stuff we found that's going on in the world that AI adds value to. What industries, what areas where people are spending money. It kind of depends on your perspective if they're generating or spending money, depending on the industry, but they're hiring people. So this list that I found was really based on this idea that where not only they're spending money and making money, but where they're hiring people. So it's interesting because on the top 10 lists, healthcare, hospitals, medical is the top 4. And then you have like commercial banking. And the one that was weird to me was new car dealerships. That one I didn't expect. But anyway, education's in there as well, though they're not really a generator of money directly. They're more of where some money's being spent. And then, of course, there's retirement and there's gasoline and petroleum. So,
I don't see technology on the list.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I specifically was looking for lists that were about generating or spending dollars and hiring. Maybe technology doesn't hire as many people. Maybe that's the whole point of technology is you hire less people. I really don't know.
So Raychel is here, and as I said, she works at Dell. So I went ahead and picked our first headline, which was an article that I actually saw on LinkedIn, where AI is being seen by Dell as a positive thing, and it's going to continue to grow. So the headline was that AI solutions are offering a powerful performance with Dell Technologies and NVIDIA.
I don't think this is your group, Raychel.
It is not. No, I'm an internal team, but of course, I've heard about Project Helix, and I think there's a lot of exciting news around it right now. But that doesn't mean that Dell, the actual employees aren't using AI. It's kind of crazy, actually. I started at Dell middle of COVID, and so I've seen how much things have changed from the pandemic, and then how here we have all this generative AI stuff, and how quickly it can kind of change your day to day. I feel like even a few months ago when I talked to people, they had just heard of things like ChatGPT. And now I would say like 90% of the software engineers I work with are using it to some degree.
Like how? Give me an example. Do you know?
It's a good coding buddy. In a lot of ways, that the things that you would be Googling, like these libraries and stuff for the languages that you don't want to memorize, you can just have a conversation instead. And, I used it just the other day for some JavaScript libraries because when was the last time I made a button a certain color? It's not something I do day to day, and I'm able just to use it as a coding partner. So it's one of those things that I think that Dell is, like most tech companies, like they want to make sure that we're not giving out, secure information and we're being responsible with it.
About that, or a little warning comes up.
Yes, that's a new thing with our latest like VPN updates in the last 2 to 4 weeks. We now get a little update saying like, hey, if you think you're about to use this in a way you shouldn't, contact this person instead. So it's a little safeguard there, but they can't make us stop using it. Like they think that Dell, like most companies, recognizes that that ship has sailed.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, they're just going to kind of make sure we use it responsibly.
I actually think I like this. Back to this project, though, I do like this project because as a person who I do the same thing Rachel does in terms of using as a coding buddy. But when you're talking about using AI, like we're talking about doing at our school district, configuring a system to allow you to utilize AI, it's seems like more like black magic than it is, an actual somebody giving you instructions on how to do it. And so then it looks like they're pre-configuring systems because it's partnering with NVIDIA
Mm-hmm.
to allow you to buy like a server that's pre-configured for this type of, if you're working on generative AI, depending on how you're doing it.
Always the coolest sounding names, right? Project Helix.
It does sound cool. It does sound cool.
Okay, so now let's move on to a few more headlines. Now, the headline, of course, I love talking about education, and I also love talking about what artificial intelligence is doing in the medical field. Rachel, I know that you also really appreciate the medical field because you got like a minor or an additional 18 hours to your degree that you got at University of Texas.
I did it in the business of healthcare. So not me being a doctor, but me actually looking more at like, the administrative side, and which is actually like such a big part of healthcare. Like it's not just treating patients. Like there's a lot of other things that go on in that industry, right?
Right.
And then you worked at a pharmacy too.
I did, yes, for a small town pharmacy. That's like a whole different ballgame. It's
everybody knows
unique
everything.
Patients.
But the reason that this article was of interest to me was because this is specifically from Carnegie Mellon, and they're talking about all the different areas of research where AI can help medicine. And I know that you did some kind of research project while you were at the University of Texas. Specifically, I don't remember, you were part of some kind of project that you worked on. We had to go to hospitals and
yes, I audited doctors and nurses on hand washing. They didn't know that's what I was there for, obviously, but I would literally put a tick, whether or not they like used the Germex or whatever when they walked in and out. I'm not going to lie, nurses do it a lot more often than doctors do.
Uh-oh, busted. So some of the ways that the article talked about was it was empowering patients through digital solutions. Now, I thought this was interesting because it was a lot about videos, not just videos about like telemedicine, but videos about medicines that you might be taking and what their side effects are, or hey, you're going to have this type of a surgery. This is what you can expect after this surgery. And that way, and it's like AI curated for you. It's an educational tool, but it's the AI is curating the things that you can watch.
So when you were at that pharmacy, wasn't part of your job if you hand out the medication, you have to tell people, don't take this and kind of educate them?
Don't drink with this medicine. That's always a fun one to share. And it's one of those things that the pharmacist often has to give consultations if the person's never taken the medicine before. And whenever you only have one pharmacist on staff at the time, you can really kind of back up the line because the person can't check out until the pharmacist has talked to them about the medication. Even if it seems like, it's not like a life or death one, it's super basic.
Mm-hmm.
And then especially if it is someone who's, maybe older or whatever, like they're not paying enough attention. They're not going to remember anything when they get home.
That's very true. There was one other little section of this article that I thought was really cool, is that artificial intelligence is taking and matching people with clinical studies. So specifically, there was a team at Carnegie Mellon that won a competition about a project, and the project was all about matching breast cancer patients with appropriate clinical trials. So if I found out that I had cancer, I would put my name on a list, and then the AI goes out and finds all of the different clinical trials that are out there to match me with. Not only is that good for me as a patient, but it's also good for the trials because trials have a hard time getting people with the specific things that they need them to have to be a part of the trial. So,
and the AI could actually be almost consultative in matching people. They can have that natural language discussion with the AI as to whether or not they match.
Mm-hmm. I'd be really interested to see how that contributes to, there's certain groups that maybe aren't as quick to participate in these studies. They don't know about them. They're intimidated by them, but you still want to make sure that you are doing studies on, a wide range of types of patients. Mm-hmm. So kind of help me make sure that these trials are more diverse.
Are successful. They say that a lot of trials actually do not succeed. I think the number was 80%. 80% of the clinical trials fail because of lack of participation, not because of lack of knowledge. So I think that was amazing. Anyway, next one, we're talking about Morgan Stanley, how artificial intelligence can reshape healthcare.
Yeah, I thought this was interesting, and that's why I pulled this one in there because they're talking about using AI for drug development. We've seen that. We've talked about it in previous podcasts. They talked about how a 2.5% improvement in preclinical development leads to an additional 30 drugs over 10 years. Well, they're talking about how AI could maybe double that or triple that. So you're talking about a case where developing these drugs and then looking at all the possible ways you can use them. I know that Google had just announced something with their Palm Medical or something they called it. Microsoft, they're all really into this in terms of figuring out how to develop drugs and maybe in ways they hadn't even thought about before and how AI can speed that up. And then, of course, there's better care delivery, which is the other thing on this article, diagnosis, treatment plans, education, all these things that were also in the Morgan Stanley, the Carnegie Mellon University thing we talked about earlier. At the end of the day, the doctor is only one phase of this. So the drugs are only one phase. The patients are a big part of whether or not these things are successful or not when you're treating them. So the educational part, the treatment plans, and all that stuff is a very important part of it. So
drugs can get kind of funny. It's if you've ever seen, sometimes they develop a drug for one thing and then there's side effects and they're like, wait, this drug actually works way better for this other thing.
We're talking about Viagra?
Yeah, I wasn't going to say it, but it was originally used for something with your heart, right?
Yes.
That'd be a funny side effect to discover.
That was a weird side effect, but they've sold a whole lot more for the side effect than they did for the original reason.
Yes, they have. So let's talk a little bit about the banking industry.
This was another in the table. Remember, we're going through the top 10. Mm-hmm. Now, we're not going in order. This was not number 2 because, like I said, the medical occupied like the first 4 of them. So there was,
which it should. When you think about it, like one of the top 5 ways that people die in the U.S. every year is from totally ways they get killed by medical malpractice that's not on purpose, right? That's not quite how you'd word it there. That doesn't sound super great. But basically totally preventable accidents happen in the medical field that, with AI supporting doctors, maybe that won't happen.
Don't get me started because that happened to me in 2010. I ended up in the hospital for a long time because it was in 2010. And it was one of those situations that the doctor was not at fault, but it was still an accident that happened.
Yeah, a little AI guiding hand.
It was actually.
And then we went to the hospital to see you, and Raychel was sitting on the floor. I remember in the hospital, and the nurse said, "You don't want to sit on the floor. That's
the dirtiest place in the world."
Well, we know the nurse washed her hands. So.
Yeah. And then years later, you're in a study about washing your hands. So it seems like it was kind of full circle.
So what about the banking industry? That's one of the things that was on the list of the top 10.
It's one of the big industries. Once again, the big predictions that I'm hoping for: customer satisfaction. Maybe those big banks could act a little more. We have a small town bank. We go to the bank. We know the people there. Mm-hmm. They're helpful. I remember
they call you up.
We're on vacation and they called us and said, "Hey, somebody just used your credit card in South Florida."
And you never leave this town.
I know you never leave. So we thought it was really great. But recently we went to a bank in the city.
Yes.
Because we were opening an account and it was so different. Mm-hmm. It was so sterile. It was so quiet and you had, anyway, obviously fraud detection. How many times have we dealt with fraud, credit card fraud and various attempts at fraud?
But why can AI make it worse?
Well, AI can make it worse because it's, how do you commit fraud? Most fraud is people pretending to be something they're not.
So the AI
can actually, in some cases now, can actually duplicate your voice. So someone can call you up and commit fraud. But it's also about learning more and more about you, building better profiles of you to help. Because fraud is generally them trying to find something about you to get you to give them credit card numbers or money or whatever.
Well, there's nothing more annoying than whenever you do go on vacation and you're trying to use your card and it's picked up as fraud when it's not. So I would definitely have hopes for the AI just to make the whole detection thing less annoying because, whenever things are inconvenient, people find workarounds and then that's a security risk.
Always.
So maybe AI getting to know me better will make the whole process smoother.
Maybe. And when we went to that vacation in Florida, they told us before we left, if you go a certain distance into Florida, that the fraud was so high that they'll automatically flag you, and which they did.
Well, what I have done ever since that experience, before we go anywhere, I make that 800 number phone call. Maybe one of these days I'll be talking to an AI instead of a person.
Oh, that's coming soon.
But I make that 800 number phone call to let them know when I'm traveling, where I'm traveling, and what card I'm going to be using, and that way it doesn't get
Flagged.
I
Yeah.
put the next thing in there because I thought it was cool. There's an AI now that you can set up on your own. And when someone calls you, remember when they used to call occasionally and I just set the phone in front of the TV until they figured out they were talking to the TV? Well, now you can actually have an interactive conversation with AI. I'll keep them on the phone. The idea being that they're all about a volume game. The fraudsters are. They got to call more and more people to get them on the phone. But if the AI talks to them and keeps them there longer, it's less likely they're going to get to call as many people. So you're probably saving somebody, and it'll also just annoy them, which is wonderful.
There was a
made one of
movie one
those.
time. There was a movie one time with a guy that picked up a phone call that was, and it was a really funny part of the movie. I'm not going to repeat what it was here because it wasn't the most appropriate thing in the world to say.
Well, you know what? I
It
keep
was
getting
a little
phone
joke.
calls about wanting to know what I'd sell my house for. And we always tell them a super astronomical number, but they still call back. I just need AI to keep like bidding up the price.
That's
Maybe I can
right.
sell my house for $1 million.
That's
Maybe
right,
that'd
exactly.
be great.
All right, so the last one we're going to talk about is the oil and gas industry. So now, yes, we are educators, and you think that we'd focus on education, and education was in the top 10, but
This
we
actually
decided-
was number 10, I think.
yes.
And I put this one in here for Rachel because Rachel's always been our environmentally conscious kid. And what I wanted to look at, this is actually from the National Institute of Health. So they're talking about how AI can help in the oil and gas industry in various ways. There was a table in there which that shows you all the different aspects of the oil and gas industry and stuff like that. But the thing this article really was about was what are all the research and articles about AI in that industry. So Rachel, the first one's for you, sustainable production.
You know, it's funny you say that because Exxon, the major gas company, actually spends more money on like sustainability research every year than any other company or the government. So, it is close to their heart for whatever reason.
Well, probably because they've lost a lot of money when it wasn't.
Yeah, I got to stay on
So,
top of it.
Part of it also is that efficiency, whether we like it or not, efficiency, where you can get rid of less waste, because you got to dispose of waste somehow.
Mhm.
And they're not dumping it, not on purpose, on the ground generally. And so if they can reduce pollution, some of the pollution, for example, when they burn the gas wells, they let them on
We saw
fire, which
that.
we saw that recently.
Yeah.
That's a waste of natural gas.
It
So
really
if they
is.
can take an AI that helps them figure out how to cost less, pollute less, which makes them more efficient, it's a win-win for both.
It's really funny. If somebody is in New York or a metropolitan area and we make a comment about burning the well,
Mhm.
we were out in West Texas,
Mhm.
way out in the middle of
And
nowhere,
in New Mexico too, we saw
and
it.
in New Mexico, and it's where we get oil. And so we're driving, and there's oil wells out in the field, or oil
Derricks
out in the field, and they're burning the well, and that
burning off the natural gas.
They hit natural gas first.
That's my understanding.
Typically, that's what they hit first before they get below that to where the oil's at, and it's cheaper for them to burn off the natural gas than it is for them to pipe it or store it. But if somebody is in New York and they hear us say burn a well,
Yeah,
they're not going to know what we're talking about. But
probably not.
that's what we're talking about. Is we're talking about what you do with the natural gas that you hit first.
I thought that was illegal. I didn't know they still did that. But
apparently it's not, because there was a lot of them being burned when we drove by.
It's a little sketchy, but
Yeah.
I think that really, even with these oil and gas people, right? Like they don't want to dig somewhere and not find oil there, right? Or they don't want to take up a ton of space. So really, they need things to be as efficient as possible, just to keep up with the
And
market.
that was the next thing, is the construction risk.
Well,
Identifying, using AI to do that.
I have a lot of family members that worked in oil and gas, and it is very, very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it isn't their goal to injure people. Unfortunately, the nature of the business makes it very dangerous. So they were talking about how AI can help identify those construction risks, hopefully not by running the data just on the data that people have gotten hurt, but hopefully it can look at the whole big picture. I don't know how that works exactly, but it'd be nice to see it be a little less dangerous.
Hey, but if they get hurt, we can send them off to the healthcare AI for repairs.
That's
so
true.
that's the goal
You have
here.
an on-site healthcare AI on the actual
They can have it right there.
location.
Prediction for the future.
Pull up the tablet. There you go. Take care of you right there. So the last thing about the oil and gas was about monitoring and maintenance, or predicting the outcome of wells, predicting how much you're going to get out of it, predicting how many you need to have.
Got to help out those accountants.
Yes.
Well,
Absolutely.
and the monitoring and maintenance side, though, is really also the reason I got thought it was a great idea is how many times have you seen failures? What is the consequence of a failure in the oil and gas industry typically? What happens?
Explosion?
Or leaks? What happened in the Gulf of Mexico?
Bad things, big bad things.
I've
A
had
a little failure has very large consequences.
I had family members that worked on oil pipelines, and one of the things when they were digging the ditches, they had to be really careful. Couldn't be any rocks in the ditch over a certain size, because when they would lay the oil, the pipe down in there over years, as the oil went through it, and it would kind of it'd rub a hole, and that's where the leaks were. So they would also line the ditches a lot of times to try to prevent that kind of stuff from happening. So maintenance, failures, it's a big deal. Or I know you come from East Texas, and when you go down there in those areas where they've got these huge refineries, there's miles and miles and miles of pipe. Well, it used to take them, literally a person was a full-time job. That's all they did was walk around looking for potential maintenance issues. Because when one of those things leaks,
it blows.
Well, either that or it just shuts down and our gas prices go up, or it leaks everywhere, or it catches on fire.
So like in Texas City and some of the other locations in East Texas, lots of refinery fires happened when I was younger. And so, I think they've increased the regulations on it.
But guess what they use now for monitoring? A drone.
A drone.
Now you have a drone swarm, which is controlled by AI. Smart drone controlled by AI. They have drone swarms now, so they have all this inspection to do. They're using drones now, but they have a person operating those drones, which I don't think the person will ever come out of that loop. But having an AI that's going around with computer vision, and they're going around, and they talked about that in some of the papers that I've read about how they can do that. So I really think that I'm excited about these applications. I'm not one of those people who think the oil and gas industry is all bad, but I do think they have problems, and I think AI could help fix that. And I think at the end of the day, I don't think an oil industry executive goes, I hope we have a leak today.
No. I'd like to go ruin some drinking water.
I'd like to go. I don't think that's what happens. So
this is not the Lorax.
I think the AI could really give them more, 24-hour unbiased monitoring, where they don't have someone who's maybe has a perception about how something ought to look that the AI is not. It's just going to look at it and go, okay, this looks bad.
Doesn't look good.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, okay. I think that especially kind of circling back to what you guys said in the beginning, all these naysayers about AI, all of these things have the common theme that, it's just helping people in their jobs. It's helping people help people. It's helping people help the environment. Like, it's really just, I guess, all these industries' buddies.
It can be. It's like your programming buddy. I mean, that's why it was adopted so rapidly by people like you and me.
Oh, let's think about that for 1 second. So we talk about buddies. You are using it right now as a coding buddy. We are working on something for AI education professionals.
Yes.
Agnes made it on the news. We're getting, I have to put a little plug in there. We're getting interviewed Wednesday of next week by a national magazine about this. And you're working on this project. You're using AI as a coding buddy and as a brainstormer and so on and so on.
Yes.
You are using AI in the corporate section. You're using it to help brainstorm, you're using it to maybe help you with some little bit of coding.
Right, and all that's less sassy.
I have adopted a classroom at the school that I work at. And one of the things that I've done is I'm going in with a teacher and I'm helping her with her lessons and things. It is a buddy for her too. It actually helped her write a short story and level that story. Same story, but one for second grade readers, one for third grade readers, because it's the very beginning of the school year. So her third graders are still reading on second grade level. And so it helped her by being a buddy. So there's so many different locations, big things and little things that artificial intelligence can help with.
I'm predicting it for the future, guys.
All right, we're ready.
Nobel Prize winner award speech, thanking AI in it. It's going to happen.
Time magazine. Have they made the cover of Time yet? I don't know if it
is. It's like a person of the year.
I know.
Maybe we need to change it up. Robot of the year.
I think a robot has, but I don't think an AI ever has. So maybe.
All right. So that's about all the time that we have for this podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes, it was fun. We'll have to come back. We had to drive all the way down to Liberty Hill, Texas, just to get you on. So, but that's okay. I got a good meal out of it. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. We hope that you tune in again. We drop at 7 a.m. every Monday morning. Have a great week ahead. And that brings us to the end of AI in Action, Exploring Tomorrow's Tech Today. We're Maurie and Jim, your guides on this exciting journey through the world of artificial intelligence. We hope today's conversation has left you with fresh insights and a deeper understanding of how AI is shaping our future. If you enjoyed our discussion and want to stay up to date with the latest in AI, make sure to subscribe and share the podcast with your friends and colleagues. Remember, the future is not something that just happens to us. It's something we can actively shape and influence with knowledge and action. So let's continue exploring, innovating, and taking action. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to sharing more exciting AI developments with you next time on AI in Action, Exploring Tomorrow's Tech Today.